read many recent studies that say purchases of new equipment is a high priority and in a focus area trend right now with people in manufacturing industries. What is that new equipment used for? Sometimes it's to increase throughput, sometimes to allow lesser skilled operators to run it, and part of it is just the return from China of a lot of the manufacturing in the US. But regardless of your reason for it, how do you integrate new equipment into your organization? New organizations are always purchasing new equipment, doing stuff with it. How does it tend to happen? So that's what I'll talk about first. What typically happens? There's pretty much a wish list or dream list of what they'd love the equipment to do. And of course, vendors will say, well, of course we can do that. And as one friend of mine said, it's often fully integrated at the brochure level, which means there's more promise and more hype than actual reality sometimes. Depends upon the vendor, depends how you've worked with them. But you have to be cautious of that. But at the same time, if they say they can do it and no equipment exists, you have to kind of trust to a point. The equipment comes in, you work with it, the engineers try a few different materials, test things out, run some trial parts. They get pulled into the most recent recall or yield hit issues with the current equipment to get it back up to speed and running. Things kind of happen, manufacturing starts cheering and requesting the equipment. We need this on the floor, we really need the extra capacity, we need to make this work, we need to give this a go, we need to get our people trained. And all of a sudden engineering just gets pushed to the edge and they say, okay, fine, here you go, we'll do our best. They limp along getting it up to speed, doesn't ramp up as quick as they wanted, and doesn't perform at the level that dream list or wish list was hoping for. Not that it's a horrible, but any gaps or any disconnects are certainly a disappointment and cause a lot more work and labor and highly skilled labor to get it back into shape. What's the ideal process? And I'm not saying this needs to happen with every piece of equipment you bring into your company, but if it's a critical piece of equipment. I believe that if you do good checkout of the equipment when it comes in, if it isn't meeting spec, and being very clear on your specs and requirements to the vendor, what they're signing up for. And maybe they're doing the checkout at the vendor before it gets into your shop. I helped one company with a particular piece of equipment that was on demo, so they hadn't paid for it yet. And we were trying to ensure that it worked. It was similar to other equipment they had, but it had a few new features, a few new things, new vendor they were working with. What we did in that case, because it was that important, and as far as product performance and field performance, they wanted to make sure it was right, and they wanted to make sure it would slip smoothly into manufacturing. They couldn't allow downtime. They couldn't shuffle things in manufacturing and have a piece of equipment that didn't work. We set up a design of experiments or experimental design matrix to test out the critical parameters for how that machine was going to operate and its key outputs. We measured those outputs, varied those inputs, found that sweet spot, and we found the manufacturing capability or process capability wasn't what it should be, wasn't similar to what the existing equipment had. Provide that feedback to the vendor. And because of the DOE process, it wasn't just, oh, this doesn't seem right, and the vendor kind of waving their hands at it and go, oh, don't worry about it, that'll be fine, that'll settle out. What they actually found in this case was a programming error, a controls error in their software. I don't know if it affected other machines or just this one, but I know it affected the one that we had. It pushed them to fix it because they didn't have money to pay in for the equipment yet. So the vendor was kind of forced to fix the issue, admit the issue, get it resolved. My client, the end user of that equipment, they weren't trying to beat up the vendor, they just didn't want to buy something that wasn't going to work or lose all their leverage and not have it operate and create that pain on the manufacturing floor. And again, that ideal case doesn't have to happen every time, but if you can't handle the typical for a given piece of new equipment, and because it's new equipment in manufacturing is a big trend right now, if you want that confidence, if you need it to go out on the floor, I've done other projects where we say to manufacturing, this equipment's ready, it's all checked out, it's ready to go, ready to plug and play, and manufacturing go, oh, hold off, we're not ready for it yet. And I've personally never heard that before, and if it does happen, it's very rarely. Manufacturing always is clamoring for the new equipment and ready to go. They had it checked out and confident to use. Usually they're forcing the engineer to hand it off. If you want those kind of experiences, closer to the ideal than the typical, give us a call at Perry Solutions, send us an email. We'd love to help you set it up, whether it's on demo equipment, custom equipment, anything that you want to get your manufacturing launched and on the path quickly.